Okay, everybody. So welcome to the Success Factor Conferences. Today this is the first ever teleconference that I'm going to be giving. This is going to be a series. We're going to have this once a week for the foreseeable future. So today we're going to be talking about how to get what you really want and more of what you already have. So before I get started, what I'd like to say is that I just want to say that this is not going to be a pitch fest. So I'm going to tell you right at the beginning, this is not going to be a whole bunch of sales. I'm going to be giving you something hopefully very useful. I'm going to give you a lot of information that I've acquired over the years that I want to share with you. So at the end, as many of you know, I am a success coach. So at the end, I will just mention if anybody wants to get in contact with me, how they can do that. So I hope that's okay for everybody. So for some people, maybe you don't know 100% about my background, so I'm just going to quickly tell you about that. As you know, my name's Andy Shepherd, and obviously I'm British. So originally I came from a city called Derby in the centre of England, and I was brought up in a restaurant environment. My mother had a vegetarian restaurant, and with that I learned how to interact with lots of people. I got a degree in electrical and electronic engineering, and with that I became a computer engineer. So I worked for a big American company called the Digital Equipment Company. Worked mainly as a hardware engineer and then as a software engineer. So this taught me all of the time I've got a lot of interaction with people, and so I'm learning about people's difficulties and problems and always thinking of ways that I can solve their problems. Previously it was with repairing computers, and now I work more one-to-one with human problems rather than computer problems. So after a 12-year career, I then went to Brazil, and to cut a long story short, I had 12 years where I built my own school, and that taught me a lot. I had an English language school out there, and this taught me a lot because I had a number of difficulties running that and dealing with people and dealing with my own problems. And actually what happened was I'd sunk the whole of my life savings into the school, and there was a day where I realized, everything was falling to pieces, as I was about to lose everything. So I went on a search. I thought, well, I've done everything I can logically. I think I'm an intelligent person. I've definitely put the hours in. I was working 14 hours a week, 14 hours a day, and 15-minute breaks at my terminal, my keyboard, eating lunch as quickly as I could. And this was obviously not the life to live. I was in a beautiful country like Brazil, and I wasn't enjoying it. So I thought, well, the one thing that I've not worked on is my mind. So I started searching on a program called Email to go and find different material. And I did this. I found lots of material by Bob Proctor and Jack Canfield and people that I'd known from a film that somebody put in my hands called The Secret. And that was really the beginning of it all. One person that popped up was a guy called Tony Robbins, and he was a person that I later started to study and got a great affinity for. So most of my wisdom and breakthroughs has been because of Tony Robbins. I have since done Robbins-Medane's training, and I've got certified in that to be a coach, and also I did leadership, which is another Tony Robbins course, but I've done pretty much everything. But when I think about it, all of my life, I've always been looking for how does the mind work? Why do we think the way that we do? Why do certain things happen to us? And always even when I was much younger, I would spend until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning trying to comfort people and help them with their problems. I realize now that I had lots of enthusiasm, but I didn't have any tools to help them. But now I do, through working with people like Tony Robbins and studying Jack Canfield and so on. So this is what I want to share with you in this series. So basically, before we get started, I'd just like to say that some of the things that I'm going to say to you may seem a little bit radical. Maybe they're things that you've never thought about before. So I'd like you to bear with me, and I definitely don't want you to get upset with anything. If there's anything you don't like, just ignore it. But it's possible that some things that I'm going to be sharing with you are a little bit like me saying that the world is not flat, it's actually round, and so on. So, like I say, hopefully you'll bear with me. So what are we going to talk about in today? So what I'm going to talk about is that we're going to talk about what do we really want? What is it that we really want when we are wanting something? Okay, that sounds a bit crazy, but we need, I'm going to show you what's behind our desires. Why do we want what we want? What stops us from getting it? What can we do to remove obstacles and blockages? Because these obstacles and blockages won't get us the final result that we're looking for. Why do we want what we want? I said, and how did we get what we already have? So we can then start repeating that formula or recipe, if you like. How can we use what I've said to get what we want and more of what we already have? And how to get the most out of what we already have. So those are going to be the topics. So let's look at the first one then. So what do we want? So for most people, there are a lot of people who actually don't know what they want. And they're kind of almost scared when they're confronted with this. And I think the reason for this is that we get pretty frustrated. We've been knocked down by life or people or circumstances or lack of money or lack of resources or whatever. And for some people, it can be a scary process to actually think about what we want, because it's painful and we don't want pain. So sometimes it's just easier to give in. So that's one thing to think about, and think about, well, what is stopping me? This is causing a block. What is stopping me from going forward? And when we think about what we really want, let me explain something. Let me give an example of a Rolls Royce. Why would somebody buy a Rolls Royce? Well, the immediate thought is it's a status symbol. We want to have a Rolls Royce because it's going to really impress lots of people. That might be one possibility. Then, whatever we do, there are a multitude of possibilities for everything. So that's one of them. Another may be that basically you think it's a very fine car. So you want the best in luxury. Tony Robbins, for example, he has a Rolls Royce, and I don't know his motivation behind it, but he might just turn around and say, well, why shouldn't I? I've got the money, I may as well enjoy it. I've put the hours in, I've helped lots of people, I think I deserve this, it's cool. So we all have a different reason for doing whatever we're doing. But at the end of the day, what is the difference between having a Rolls Royce and having a VW Beetle? And please, there's nothing wrong with a VW Beetle. So if you've got one of those and happy, that's great, fantastic. But what I'm saying is, what is the difference between the two of those? Basically, it's down to the fact that it's the feeling. Why do we do anything? Why do we buy anything? It's the feeling that it's going to give us. And, driving a Rolls Royce is going to probably give you a different feeling than is, say, for a VW Beetle. So, some of this is obvious. If you're driving a Rolls Royce, you're feeling the comfort of the seat, the drive, the roar of the engine, the smooth and ease of going anywhere. And obviously you're going to have a very different feeling. But more than just the tactile feelings, how does this make you feel? And this goes with pretty much anything that we buy, if we think about it. How does it make you feel? This goes to, say, buying a Coca-Cola instead of buying a cheap soda. Why would you pay extra? Well, because of the feeling you're going to get. The taste is something, is going to be different, obviously, but you're going to feel better. Oh, I've bought the product that I desire, and you associate a feeling with that, if you like. So the other thing that why we want what we want, obviously some people may say, well, what do I really, really want from life? And we'll say, well, I want to be a multi-millionaire, or I want to be multi-millionaire, and I want to have a mansion, and I want to have this perfect husband or perfect wife, and there's big swimming pool and Lamborghini, Ferrari, all of the cars you can imagine, and lots of holidays. Fine. But is that really what you want? We've been led, society, Hollywood, films, everything is making us perceive that is what is going to give us happiness. We've achieved everything if we've got all of those things. Well, I'm not sure about that. And basically, when I lived in Brazil, for example, I found that people were happy with just having small things. They were happy with the simple things of life, and we'll talk about that in a while. So, like I say, why do we want what we want? So this is a kind of something that has come from society, maybe our peers, our friends. We've all been led to believe that if we have a certain status, we buy certain things, then we're going to feel a certain way, and it's all about how we're going to feel. So when we decide that we're going to go for things and buy something, and I'm saying, I'm not saying you shouldn't have a Rolls Royce. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a mansion. If that's really, truly going to make you happy, great, go for it. I love it. So, but what is stopping us from getting whatever we want? Okay, so this is the bit that maybe you're not going to like, but I'm going to have to tell you anyway. So what stops us from getting it? Ultimately, we do. We stop it. If we can get to the point where we can accept everything is our own, is down to us, then we're really going to go forward. I remember hearing this many years ago. My mother used to be a yoga teacher, and we used to go on to meet a special guy called Ken Radcliffe in the UK. And part of yoga is it's about the Indian philosophy as well. So we'd learn a lot of this kind of thing. And he would talk about terrible things that had happened to people, and he would say basically that it's the fault of the person who was, the victim, if you like, because, they'd chosen to be there. They were there. And I thought this was really, really pretty tough. And I remember as a child, I really didn't understand it, and I really didn't like it. But later in life, I found that basically we do draw things to us, and our mind is much stronger than we realize. And so we do really need to take some responsibility for whatever happens to us. And it's much easier this way, because a lot of the time we're going around blaming other people for what's going on around us. And we're saying, if this person hadn't done this, or if this person had done that, then everything would be okay, and that person shouldn't have done this to me, and that shouldn't have happened, and this shouldn't have happened. At the end of the day, we can't control the outside world. The one thing that we can control is ourselves and control what's happening with us. So this is where we really need to work from. And this is a life changer if we can do this. When I say that the mind is a very powerful thing, basically I think that we get pretty confused by this physical realm that we live in. If I hit on something solid, then, I get resistance from it. The reality from Einstein, he taught us this simple formula which proves a lot to me, E equals mc squared. Basically, he showed that energy equates to mass, to substance. And so we don't realize that basically we're all energy. Everything around us is energy. Our mind is a type of energy. And, I hope I'm not losing people here. Please bear with me. If this is something you don't like, then, it'll be over soon and we'll be talking about something else. So our minds are transmitting things, and this energy is interacting with the substance around us. And at least that is the conclusion that I come from the studies and from practical example as well. And whether we believe it or not, there are things where we can think, oh, I was just thinking about you, and the person phones us. Or, I had a premonition that something was going to happen. There is something more. I think a lot of us must be able to contemplate the fact that there must be something more than just the physical. But the physicality of all of this around us confuses us, and we forget who we are and what everything's about. So what else can stop us? Well, ultimately, it's very much about what happened in the past. So what happened in the past can have an effect on our present. Usually these are things that are kind of traumatic things that happened, traumatic occurrences, but not necessarily. Sometimes it can be something very, very subtle. Tony Robbins gave an example of a baby falling off a chair onto a green carpet, and just before the pain of hitting the carpet, the baby saw green. And then again, the baby's on the chair, falls off the chair, down onto the green carpet, sees green again. So at some point in later life, that baby could have a phobia for green. So who knows what else is going on? And through my work as a coach, I've seen some extraordinary blocks that have happened with people, which I've worked with some things which on the surface seems quite insignificant. And when I went deeper, there was something really major that happened to cause that block. And once we'd released it, the client was able to really have a much better quality life. We can imagine anything that's holding you back is not going to give you your full potential, and that's what I want for you. I want you to have your full potential in life. So, unfortunately, incidents that happen to us in our childhood are, as a child, we don't really have the mental capacity to be able to deal with things. And so something happens and we give it a meaning that it doesn't really have, and we make it seem as if it's something that it isn't, and we can come to some quite extraordinary conclusions. But unfortunately, at an early age, this is when we start this goes into our subconscious. So we're kind of being led and made to do things, and sometimes it's almost like we're like robotic. We have this program making us do stuff that we don't realize. So this is something that we need to look at and to remove. So what can we do to remove these obstacles and blockages? Well, most of the time, to be honest, we're using sheer willpower to overcome them. We think that if we put enough effort in and really, really try hard and work really, really hard, then we'll overcome these. We'll achieve whatever we want, and we just keep firing through. And yes, that really, really works, but it uses up a lot of energy. And sometimes people just don't get to the end result that they're looking for because, the blockages and obstacles are too great. And it's just such a shame to see how this is. I have suffered this for in the past many, many years of my life, and I've had some very, very low times. I remember where basically in Brazil, I was at a point, like I said, where I was about to lose my whole school, and I got myself into a situation where I was in the most beautiful country in the world, in paradise. There was some great people and beautiful beaches and beautiful nature nearby, living the dream, but I got myself into such a mess with the school that I was living at the back of it in a tiny little room with no windows and mold, and spending the whole of my weekend drinking beer, trying to work out, just trying to escape it all because I had no friends. The only friends I got were cockroaches, and I got no money to go out. So how could I have friends? And I soon found out that by changing my mind and changing my mindset, I very quickly got myself out of that situation. So it can be done. So why do we want what we want? Most of the time, it is to give us a needed state change. We talked about we want feelings. Well, a state change can sometimes be we want to feel superior when we're feeling maybe a little bit inferior. So this might be the reason why somebody buys a Rolls Royce, because they make themselves feel good. Or, whatever we do, we sometimes buy something to just make us feel good. And I think that is a little bit proliferated by society now. We are living in a consumer age, and we all know that. For example, you buy yourself a cell phone today, and it's going to be all bells, all whistles. It's going to do 1,000,001 things that you'll never need to do. But because you hear about it, you think, wow, I must have that. That's the best. That's incredible. And, in 6 months' time, it's going to be the old model. It's going to be absolutely useless, and people will wonder why the heck you'd bought it, because it's so inferior, because it doesn't have this widget or this ability, and it doesn't have a barometer on it or a thermometer or whatever it is. So that is the society that we live in, and that's the whole world now. We work like this. Our economics seem to be dependent on this. So I think it's good to just bear this in mind when we're getting restless about things. And please, I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy things. I'm not saying that we shouldn't enjoy things. I really am not. But I just want you to know the process of what's going on so that you can make the best decisions. Back about what I was saying in Brazil. Brazil, basically, one thing that I got so much out of is it's such a poor country there for some people, and they were really living in abject poverty. But the majority of them were very, very happy, and they were happy with everything that they already had. And yes, of course, they dreamed, they wanted to have bigger and better things, but they appreciated what they had. And better is that they appreciated what other people had as well. So, for example, in the UK, my experience was that people seem to pick at things all the time. For example, I remember I got myself a second-hand Mercedes. It was like 9 years old, but it was perfect, absolutely perfect. And people were picking on me because some people thought I was a snob because I'd bought a Mercedes. In reality, I'd bought a car which was as equivalent to any run-of-the-mill car that you could get, but it actually performed better. The parts were the same price, and was more fun to drive, more enjoyable, more comfortable. And I never had problems with it. It was the sensible thing to do. But I remember they also used to pick on me by saying, well, how come you didn't get air conditioning with this, or how come you didn't get a CD player, multiple CD exchanger with it, or whatever. And that was most unfortunate, always picking at people. The difference in Brazil was, for example, I remember a friend of mine, he'd just got a very run-of-the-mill car, and, very basic. I was another friend who was like an eminent doctor who got a lot of money, got an Alfa Romeo, which is something quite amazing for Brazil. And he actually complimented him, and he really meant it. I'm so happy for you. That is fantastic. What a great car. It's got this and it's got that, and it's going to be so great for you. I'm so happy. And I think this is what it's about. We need to be happy for other people and happy for ourselves. And so this is something really, really good thing to have, I believe. So how did we get what we already have? Okay, so this is something good to look at. Well, most of us say we worked hard to get it. And yes, that's probably true. Another part is that we deserve it. Great. Well, what I'm really saying is, how do we get what we already have? Because I believe that, I've heard Jack Canfield talk about success leaves clues, and it does. And, Tony Robbins says success leaves clues, and it does. So that's what I want for you. Depending on your beliefs, then some people may say that it's down to karma. So what about cause and effect? Well, another version of this is what I would call law of attraction. So with law of attraction, you can have whatever you want. You can draw anything to you that you want once you've actually made a decision and decided what it is. So how does law of attraction work? Well, law of attraction is something that The Secret talked about, but unfortunately with the original Secret, they actually took a few things out of it. So I'm going to explain it a little bit and talk about it very briefly. And I'm going to mention a couple of the parts which were missing. So with law of attraction, the first stage is that we need to decide what we want. And for most people, apart from the people I talked about at the beginning who've been a little bit traumatized, this is probably fairly easy to do. It's easy to decide what we want. The next thing is we need to really know that we deserve it. Not think that we deserve it, but to really, really know. And this is possibly a little bit more tricky than it seems, because we can kind of deceive ourselves, but it's about what's going on in your subconscious. You really, really have to believe that you really deserve it. I've met several people and clients as well, which are held back because there's a part of them believes that they don't deserve it, or worse still, they're held back by their parents and their peers who are perhaps not in good conditions and don't want them to progress forward and don't want them to have a big house or a big car or to have lots of money. And this can be a major, major problem. But also, maybe some of you have heard about the thermostat effect, where there's like a thermostat of where we should be earning money, for example, or whatever. Let's talk about money in this case. And when we get to a stage where we've accumulated X amount of money, then it's as if the air conditioner kicks in and starts bringing the temperature down. So this is where we see people losing money, or big corporations just going under overnight. And the air conditioner works until you reach a certain point, and then it goes off again. And this is what our subconscious can be doing to us as well, which is most unfortunate. So throughout what I'm presenting you tonight, and what I'm going to be presenting to you with different topics over the weeks, is just a presentation of how important the mind is with everything. We can't underestimate this, and something that we really need to be looking at. So what's the next stage then? So the part 3 is that we need to visualize what it is that we want. So as we visualize, we need to really communicate with the universe, everything around us, that, will give a message of what we want. And so to give this message, the universe needs to understand it completely, what it is that you're really wanting. Because it's not as if you can give a part number and say, hello, here's the part number, this is what I want. That's really not going to work too well. So if we turn around and we need to really visualize every physical part of it. So imagine the sound of it. An example in The Secret, for example, is of a car. So the guy is in his armchair, and there's lights appear on it, and he's imagining that he's driving it and feeling the steering wheel in his hand, and the noise of the motor, and beep beep, the noise of the horn, and so on. You've got to fully imagine all of it. And most importantly, then to imagine how it feels when you having that. But you need to bring the future into the present, and this is a most important key part of it, because as you do this, then you're creating a kind of a vacuum. And that's with nature doesn't like vacuums, and we can see this on a hot day. The air rises, and in its place, the wind is produced because cold air has to go into its place, or air has to go into its place because a vacuum cannot exist. The nature doesn't like vacuums. And so it's the same as well with law of attraction. So as you are visualizing that it's here right now, there's a discrepancy which can't be, and the universe will act very quickly at giving it you. If you don't believe in the mechanism of it, then I'd like you to just see, I find this pretty far-fetched as well. The only thing that I can say is that through my experience of visualizing different things, that this it's as if this is the way it is. So I believe in it because, well, it's empirical. I can't negate it. I can't get away from that. I can't say that it's not true. But again, this is something, if you don't like any part of what I'm saying, then it doesn't matter. Just let go of it and just take the bits that you find acceptable and interesting. The next thing is that, the universe will actually answer your question and will give you whatever you want. But it will use whatever is around you. So if we negate it and we say, no, I can't have it from here or can't have it from there, it's not going to work. So, for example, there have been times when I've been short of money and I've been sending out to the universe, hey, give me money. This is like a long time ago. And say maybe a girlfriend had offered to lend me money, or, a person who I didn't think had got much money would offer me money, or a person who shouldn't would offer me money. And I blocked it, I stopped it, and the money didn't come. It's like we just have to open up and we just have to trust in the process and feel very, very grateful. That doesn't mean to say that we take advantage of people and we take money from whatever, and that is where really this is kind of like, as you're going with the flow of all of this, and you're doing it from a good place and a good heart, because if you don't, then it's probably not going to work very well, and it's probably going to counteract any of the laws of attraction from working. So finally, it's that there is some doing part of it, and generally people work frantically with the doing part and go do, and work really hard with that. And then when we think that it's going to happen, then we start believing it, and we go around and we then start visualizing it, and then we have it. So the law of attraction is putting it in the right order, because in reality we need to start believing there's something, and sending that message out, and then we are inspired to do the action which is going to get it, because generally stuff doesn't just fall in your lap. Sometimes it does though, but generally depending on what we're asking for. And then the final part is to receive, is to have the whatever it is that we want. So how can we use what I've said above and get what we want, or more of what we already have? Well, we need to know the exact recipe for success is one part of it. So I've very quickly talked about the law of attraction. So with my clients, my coaching clients, then this is obviously something that I go a lot deeper into much more depth. I don't have the time here. I'm constrained to just 1 hour. So, and that's something that I can do with them. The other thing we obviously need to do is to remove as many blockages as possible, because if we're holding ourselves back from doing that, then going forward, then this is obviously not going to be beneficial. So let's see, how can we get the most out of what we already have? And I'd like to add this because this is really, really important. This was kind of like a life changer for me when I started to contemplate this. I remember years ago hearing a quote from the first Buddha, which is the Buddha Atisha. Buddha Atisha said, we don't want enough. We should want all of the things that we already have. And when you meditate on this and really look at it closely, this is something quite phenomenal, because we really have abundance in so many things, but we take a lot of things for granted, because we talk about the consumer society, but and that's part of it. But if we could just really appreciate all of the things that we have. For example, I'm using a mobile phone to give this teleconference on. I'm talking, there's people all over the world who are listening to this. There's people in Brazil who are listening to this. There's people who are in Canada listening to this, in the different states of America. I have also people in Europe who are going to hear the recording of this because it's too late at night for them to, this is kind of like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning for certain people. But apart from that, I'm going to show my age now, but I remember when I saw Captain Kirk using his communicator, he could be on a planet talking in outer space to the orbiting Enterprise. Well, we've got the same technology here, because when I'm talking on this mobile, then it's possible that I'm actually talking via satellite going into outer space if I'm communicating with the other side of the planet. This is the same, and we thought that was like space age, and we have this now. We really are living in an amazing age where we've got some incredible things. For example, the T-shirt that I'm wearing at the moment, if I look at the amazing things that have happened to make that T-shirt possible, I realize how lucky and fortunate I am. For example, the T-shirt is made of cotton, so the cotton has been grown from seed. Imagine how much work went into that, with a farmer and his machinery or whatever, putting nutrients on to make it to grow. Then the machinery that actually took it out of there, and then they took all of the cotton, and this got shipped out from one country to the other by ship or whatever to another. They spun the cotton and made thread from it, and then from the thread they actually produced the T-shirt. Somebody went in to actually designing the T-shirt. Another bunch of people had created the dyes for it. But if you break it down even further, then let's go back a few stages. What about the special machinery which took the cotton out of the ground in the first place? What was the process of building every single component of that? For example, the wheels that were there, the people who then produced the rubber to make the tires, the designers who created that tread pattern, the special components of all of the rubber involved, etc., etc. If you go in infinite detail and look at all of this, we are incredibly, incredibly blessed. But we don't see all of this. We're just thinking about the things that we don't want. And so this is like a really big thing that I would like to share with you. It's like Tony is always saying, where focus goes, energy flows. So if all of the time we're thinking about the things that we don't have, how is that going to make us happy? And in fact, with anything in life, it's like, if you're thinking about something that's not useful, then what is it going to be? It's going to be not useful to us. So we need to be looking at things that are useful, that are good for us, that are beneficial. So, we should just look at all of the things that we already have, just like Atisha said. So, as I said to you, one of the many things that I got from Brazil was that it taught me to be really happy with everything that I have. And I truly am. That really is the case. Another final part, which is tremendously important, is to not be jealous, to have no jealousy, because jealousy is kind of like the opposite of law of attraction, really. It's not positive, because what you're doing is you're sending out a very negative energy as you're doing this. Because if I look at somebody and I'm jealous for what they have, then it's like saying that person doesn't deserve it, or you don't like that person because they have it, or whatever it is. When we actually feel joy for having that, then we're sending the message out that that's what we should be having. If you're jealous, you're sending the message out that you're sending the message out of lack, because you're saying an energy of a mismatch, of not having something. And the universe is not going to understand that. It's not going to understand this as being a positive message that you really, really want something, because as focus goes and energy flows. So you're focusing on lack. So the university thinks you want lack, and it will give you that in shed loads, which is not obviously what you want. So in summary, the different stages and how to get what you really want and more of what you really have. So we need to really think about what we really want. What do we want and why do we want it? Think about the emotion behind it. Think about sometimes we make decisions for emotional reasons. We might decide, I've got to have a new piece of clothing or a new computer or a new phone or new car or whatever. Maybe we need to, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that. Yes, please, if you have the money and you have the ability or it's breaking down, please go and do it. But I'd like us to just look at why we're doing it, and really take that on board. And maybe we can make these better decisions and just go, wow, I'm really not feeling good about myself. What is that? What would be a better way of fulfilling that need? Am I stressed out? Do I need a holiday? Do I need a break from certain people? Do I need to, go to a spa and go for a sauna and have a massage and chill out? Would that make me feel better? Do I need to exercise more because I'm just getting run down? And I don't know. But definitely need to look at this more closely. So really look at why you want these things. Look at what's stopping you. Think about what your blocks are. If I can help anybody with that, I would love to. It'd be my pleasure. Why do we want things? Is it something that society is really pushing us into? Is it really what we want? Look at what is stopping us. Not just your blockages, but your blockages, your things that have happened in your past, people around you, sometimes circumstantial, people who are just giving you bad advice and just holding you back. Where is your thermostat? What caused your thermostat? And what can we think about, what can we do to remove those obstacles? I guess probably that's more for me to do. I don't know. So why do we want what we want? So same thing again I was talking about. And think about how we got to where we have now, and think about, how law of attraction works. Think about how can I find more about that and put that more into practice. So also, how can we use what we have done, all of the things that I've said to get, and all of the things that we did in the past to get more of the same, because success leads clues. And basically, how can we appreciate all of the things that we already have? Think about doing that. So one thing, I'm going to just open everything up so that people can ask me any questions. But before I do that, I just want to quickly make you a special offer. I should have said that right at the beginning, but I'm going to make you a special offer because you've been listening to this. I'm going to be giving away a very special price for the first 3 people who decide to coach with me. The way that I work is that I work as a breakthrough coach. So I work on timeline therapy, if you work. So what I do is I take people back to where a blockage or an incident or something that people didn't like, to work on that. And I look at the point when it happened, the point before when the person was, in a better position and was perhaps in inverted commas whole, and the moment afterwards. And then I create a communication with these 3 aspects of the person. And through this, I've been doing this for many years now. I've helped many people. It's been my privilege to help up-and-coming actors and models and musicians. I've even helped a 3 times Emmy award-winning video editor, and people from all over the country, in different countries as well, all over America, from every kind of issue you can think of, from the most grueling, terrible, worst moments of their life to things that seem so simple but really caused major blockages. So the way that I work is that usually I would work for the first week, I give an hour per week, and the first probably 2 or 3 sessions would be getting to know the process, and if you're ready, then we can probably clear the blockage very, very quickly. Sometimes it can just take an hour and a half or something like this. But I will commit to working with you until it happens. After the process, but like I say, it usually takes maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 sessions. After that, I do an integration part, which for some people takes a month, other people take 2 months, other people it takes 3 months. So however long it takes, then I will be there to make it happen and to guide you through that. I will guarantee that with my work, I will stay, and even if it takes to 6 months until we get a resolution, until we've removed the blockage. So normally I would charge $1,500 for this, for removing whatever blockage anybody wants. What I'm going to do this time, the special offer, is that I'm cutting this down to $1,000 for the first 3 people who are interested in doing this. So how do you get in contact with me? Well, some of you know that I'm on Facebook, so you can contact me there. Or if you prefer to write an email, then you'll find me on Andy at Shepherd Coaching, SHEPHERD. That's like the guy who looks after the sheep, shepherdcoaching.com. So that's Andy at shepherdcoaching.com. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to open up the mic. So if anybody wants to ask a question here, then you can go ahead. So if anybody's got their speakers on or there's a lot of noise, maybe you'd like to just mute yourself. So I'm opening up. So is there anybody who'd like to ask a question? Hello, is there anybody out there?
Hi, Andy. This is Richard. Will you allow people to make 3 payments? Like, can they divide that into more than 1 payment, or do they need to pay everything up front?
Yes, Richard. Send me an email, and we can work on that. Not a problem. Definitely.
Okay, great. Yes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. My pleasure. Any more questions from anybody?
I don't have any.
Hi, hey, who's speaking?
It's Becky. I don't have any questions, though.
Okay, Becky. So,
hey, Andy, this is Brian Kelly. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, hi, Brian. I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. That was a wonderful, wonderful call. Very value-packed. I'm just in the middle of working out. I've been listening to you, and now I'm panting with trying to catch my breath, but I didn't want to let this go without letting folks know about you and what you did for me. And by the way, you didn't ask me to come on the call and say anything about you. This is completely on my own. But Andy spent, I always say an hour, but it was probably closer to half an hour with me, one-on-one. And he helped me to get over a block that was keeping me from something I truly, truly, truly wanted. And he did this masterfully, quickly, with love, but also he was very stern, and he got the result. Andy is about results, and that's what I love about him. And he's become a dear friend of mine, and we've kept in touch. That's been over a year ago, I think, that we did that, right, Andy? It's been quite a while.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I just want to tell you personally that I'm still and forever will be grateful for what you did for me and what you're doing now for people who are on this call and in the future.
Thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate it. I didn't know you were going to say that. This is true. I didn't ask him to come and do this, but I'm really grateful, and I'm so grateful that you got such benefit from it. And yes, sometimes I can be, maybe there's times when I need to be stern. It's like I need to be a parent. It's like when somebody's kind of going down a path that's not right for them, I've got to shake them up a bit, I'm not going to do that with everybody, but it's like I love people so much, I just can't not do that. And so that was the case in your situation. I just needed to just I couldn't gently get you off where you were going. I needed to just yank you and move you to one side. So that's kind of what happened, and it was wonderful that you. I really appreciated that you allowed me to do that. Get me the permission to do that, which was just fantastic. It really was.
That made me appreciate you even more, to be quite honest. The fact that you used that approach with me, I knew as you were doing it that it came from a place of love and friendship. And we didn't even know each other that long at that point, but I knew because you just have that quality about you. And I just went with it. I enjoyed it. When I got home, I told my son, my wife, everybody about it, exactly what happened, almost word for word at some point. And I told them it was incredible, wonderful, and you're going to be a lifelong friend for me.
Oh, bless you. Equally. Thank you, Brian. Thank you. That's
very
fantastic.
welcome.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from anybody? Well, okay, I'm going to wrap this session up. This is going to be something that is going to be a weekly event. So next week, I'm going to talk about we're going to have a series of success factor teleconferences. So next week I'm going to talk about how to quit whatever you want to quit and how to start whatever you want to start. Because for some people it's difficult to quit doing things. And I'm not just talking about the normal things of quitting smoking or quitting overeating or whatever it is, or drinking. I mean, that could be a fact. But, sometimes we need to quit all sorts of things that are not useful to us. We need to quit not making money. We need to quit being in certain relationships. And that doesn't mean just intimate relationships. Sometimes we need to separate ourselves from certain people. And the other thing is that we often procrastinate, and it's difficult to get motivation to go forward and do things. So I'll be talking about that as well. So I just want to thank everybody for joining me on this first ever conference that I've given, teleconference. Thank you so much for everybody being on this call with me. Please forgive any of my errors, and thanks for bearing with me. And I really do look forward to the next call, the same time next week. Okay, so thanks everybody, and bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.